about becoming someone that you're not. It's about being your best self and being as confident in your own skin and what you're wearing day to day as a business too. And I feel like your image personally, you have to embody what your brand is.
How you guys doing? I hope you're excited for today's walk with me. It's actually with one of my friends who's has a lot of experience living and working and studying around the world, from China to London, working with L'Oreal and doing branding, to New York City, working on Wall Street, to Philly, to her hometown of DC, and also a good friend of 10 years. So she's gonna be giving you a little bit of inside scoop of what she's been working on. So come walk with me as we get to know Jasmine. So nice to be having a nice little stroll with you in Georgetown.
We got lucky, beautiful day too.
You've been a DC area resident for quite some time, but for those who don't know, where are the roots? Tell everybody where you're originally from.
The roots. Well, a lot of people don't know. I'm actually, a country girl at heart. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee.
The boots are definitely reflective of your roots.
They were made for walking, for sure. So I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and then moved to
There's
Bethesda.
a lot of Persians in Nashville, Tennessee.
Surprisingly, yes, but not as much as here, though. I think you guys get the cake here. So then I moved over to Bethesda, Maryland. So small town, still suburbs of DC, but always had these big aspirations. So yeah.
Very cool. And then when you grew up, like the high school and the college years, where was that?
That was in Bethesda. So then I moved here, and that was definitely a huge culture shock, huge shift in coming from this small town, not so diverse area to a melting pot, essentially. So, being surrounded by people from different cultures, different backgrounds was great. It was tough, but definitely was like the stepping stone and made me who I am today.
So speaking of who you are today, at what point did you kind of go after some career aspirations, and at what point did you say to yourself, okay, well, these are the kind of things that I want to do when I grow up and stuff? Do you recall a moment where you kind of were finding a path, or where you were paving a path?
So when I moved to Bethesda, I had all these big dream aspirations, but I was scared. I didn't know how to act upon it. So what was easy was to play it safe. So what I did was essentially I followed the path that I was supposed to take. So what family tells you to do, what society tells you to do. So I just fell into that pigeonhole.
Which in your case was?
Just let me just go to college. So I went to University of Maryland, and then from there got into the tech world, working for a corporate startup, more of a startup. And then I thought, okay, what's next? So I didn't take time to figure out what I wanted. I did what I'm supposed to do. So then from there I was like, oh, well, what's next? Let me go get my MBA. So I went to London, got my MBA. And again, it's that path. It's the society's path, not my path. I was like, oh, well, I need to go into working consulting. So I moved to New York City. I worked on Wall Street. And from there was just kind of like, okay, now it's time. What do I want to do? Take that. I was like, this is not me. I need to follow my own path.
And then that brought you back home to DC. And working in the fashion world. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so again, I think I like doing little culture shocks, because going from Wall Street to fashion is a different world there. But it really opened my eyes into what I wanted and what I wanted to do. And so that way, figuring out sales, marketing, branding, but having that experience and exposure to working with the mom and pop shops to the Fortune 500 companies, knowing that at the end of the day, there's so many similarities between them all when it comes to branding and marketing, even sales, that there's so much in common. So just bringing that to forth.
And not to mention the fact that in general, there's been so much globalization, and especially with the advent of social media, and it's brought the world much closer, and having those experiences with different cultures, allows you to connect with a lot of more people around the world, and just open that mind, right?
Sure, it creates compassion.
First of all, what a nice view we have over here, the Kennedy Center, a lot of scandals in the Watergate over there.
Gotta love DC.
Beautiful stuff, the Key Bridge. Love that the Marriott Hotel has actually a great view for a lot of nice weddings over there. Yeah. So you know, you've had the pleasure of, I consider it a pleasure to be able to travel the world and to live and work in different countries and understanding different cultures. And you've done it in China, you've done it in England, inside the States, you've had New York and Philly and DC, which are, these are great markets to kind of experience. So how did those experiences lead to you kind of finding your true passion that has right now, I think, branding and sales intertwined?
For sure. I think growing up, I've always had a very creative mindset. But because I kind of went into that path, that didn't really enable me to be creative and playing it safe constantly, and being in environments that really did not encourage taking risks. So I tried to push the boundaries as much as I could to figure out creativity, and you know, whether it be working in the small companies or the big Fortune 500 companies. And I realized that there was a theme that was there, and the fact that if they didn't really understand who their brand was. And as much as they tried, and that's kind of where they failed, they were so fixated on trying to create a perception of what do other people want to see versus them like digging deep into figuring out what is it that they want.
Right.
And that's where they fail, because you might get their attention initially, but that attention is not sustainable.
True.
So you have to keep going. And because they weren't taking those risks and they were just following the grain, and I realized every time you follow the grain, there's no room for innovation. And that was the theme, and that was kind of a light bulb moment for me there. It was like, wow, working with these mom and pops and big companies, like worked with Goldman Sachs, I worked with NBC, Comcast, L'Oreal, and I realized, wow, like the process is still the same. It's digging deep into who you are, what you want, what serves you, what doesn't serve you. And it's going deep, and a lot of people don't like going deep.
I think the important part is not just finding your own message and knowing who your brand is, but also really knowing who your audience is, you know? Like those both components, once you have figured out who you are and what your brand is, whether it's as an individual or as an entity or business, then it's like, who is your target audience? Because then you know exactly how to tailor all the promotion and sales and the image. So how important is image and branding in today's day and age?
It's really important, and I feel like it's such a sticky kind of, there's a controversy around it when people are like, oh, the image shouldn't matter, right? It's who you are, what you are. I hate to break it, but we do live in a judgmental world. You're constantly being judged, subconsciously too. Maybe we think like, no, we're not judging. We all do it day to day. It's, okay, it's not about becoming like someone that you're not. It's about being your best self and being as confident in your own skin and what you're wearing day to day as a business too. And I feel like your image personally, you have to embody what your brand is. And if you're showing up at, you know, the office, to the workplace, to a meeting, and you're not embodying that message that you've created, that image that you want others to see, there's discrepancy in what people expect and what they see.
I think fakeness is just so easy to detect. And like that's one thing I think most brands, they make such a big mistake, is the fact that they're just not being true to themselves, and as a result they're not being true to their followers, and that's why they lose those followers, because they don't have that connection anymore.
Absolutely.
What I want to touch on is, you know, because you've experienced working in big corporate, but you've even like started working with your mom in a little, tell us more about the small business that you have going on with your mom.
Yeah, so I developed, so I worked in the beauty industry for a little bit as well, and you know, my mom comes from like, you know, 35 plus years working in beauty as well, and a big passion there was within hair. So we created she was the chemist behind it. I'm more the creative branding marketing person there, where she spent years trying to formulate, again, going back to authenticity, where we saw there was a gap in the market is beauty companies, a lot of brands are just, they're misleading. They're manipulating their consumers to buy their products. What they're putting on the labels and how they're presenting it. But if you actually look on the labels and read what the ingredients are, Google, like you probably won't understand any of it. Put it in Google, understand how much damage we're putting in, especially the products on our skin. Our skin's our biggest organ, so whatever we're putting in, we're absorbing it. So we're like, okay, we want to be real, we want to be transparent as possible, creating a hair product that is 100% good for your hair. And one big thing that we realized was, so we started taking CBD years before it became such the big thing that it is. And it's a huge market. But again, people are taking advantage of how big it's becoming. They're putting CBD on the labels just because they feel like, oh, that's what people are gonna buy it. But if you look at it, they're putting all this other junk in there that's actually doing more harm. So we created a product that was everything sourced locally, completely natural, organic, that it's so good for you and just making you healthier inside and out, essentially.
When do you think people can see this product come to fruition?
Oh man, if I'm putting it out there, then it needs to happen.
Yeah, of course.
So pressure's on, but the goal is summer, this summer,
Oh,
summer
nice. Right around the
2020.
corner then.
Yeah.
Do you want to disclose the name, or is it still on the wraps?
Oh, well, the name is boast. So the whole thing where I believe is you should just boast about yourself, boast about the way you feel, just being confident. So we just want this product you put on and you just want to boast about it.
So March 4th, Unite and Conquer, Hilton McLean, you're one of the presenters.
I'm excited.
What can people, so are we actually, what can people expect? What are you going to be talking about?
I think I really want to hone down to what I've witnessed in working with the small companies, big companies, and seeing how they kind of, like, they all have that one thing in common, and understanding brand. So I think you're diagnosing your problems in your business, where I came up with I call it brand therapy.
I love that name.
Essentially.
Yeah.
It's really getting into the psychology of yourself and your brand, and not focusing on the look and feel, but understanding what you want. And when you figure out what you want, what your brand is, you're able to create a better message, to be able to present that to your customer. And when you really know who you are, you're able to understand who your customer is. And those two go hand in hand together.
That does go right in line with the whole importance of your story. How important your story is. And so there's a story where you got to know deep down inside, what is your purpose? What is the purpose of the brand? What is the purpose of the product, you know? And then tying it in to make sure that the presentation of that is great. So those are things you're going to be.
Your brand tells a story.
Yeah.
So you individually has a story, but your brand has a story too. So what I really want to do is help others find that story in their brand and how to tell that story with their brand, because as humans we're wired to follow stories, right? And figuring out who your customer is, then you're able to understand what your customer wants and create a story for your customer to follow. And at the end of the day, what's important is having a successful brand and in return a customer acquisition. So understanding building a successful brand and how to get more customers. Win-win.
Well, you know, the Unite and Conquer itself, you know, we have our story, we have our brand, and the story is that we want to help as many event professionals, hospitality, wedding professionals to find their story and spread their message and the purpose to their target audience. And I'm so happy that we get to have you as part of our story to help us make sure that we're telling our story right. And so we're super excited to have you as one of the presenters, and I appreciate your friendship as well. You've always been so supportive of me, and just the fact that you're even part of the Unite and Conquer, it stemmed from you wanting to help me, you know? And so I appreciate that, and I have no doubt that the same help that you've offered to me and Unite and Conquer, and even Night Owls, is what you're going to be able to do to help everybody else. So thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for walking with me. And March 4th, let's go, Unite and Conquer.